Look, it's dirty here. Hey, what's this dust at the entrance? Clean it properly. We're running out of beer. Go buy more, my husband demanded before yet another party. I want to skip the party this weekend and invite my parents instead, I tried to protest. What are you talking about? No, I object, Axel snapped. Huh, object? I exclaimed, surprised. Do you even understand what it means to be a wife? You married into my family, my husband added sharply. Feeling both hurt and disappointed by his words, I called my mom and told her everything that had happened. After listening and offering words of support, she suggested, I have a plan, but I won't act on it unless you agree. I said yes. My name is Ariella. My husband Axel and I have just started our life in our dream home, but I'm already dreading the weekends. Lately, we've been hosting weekly parties at our house to welcome my in-laws. My wishes are completely overlooked, and I barely get any time to rest. During these parties, I end up acting like a servant for my in-laws. Axel and I have been married for 3 years and work together. In the early days of our marriage, we lived in a small 2-room rental apartment. Hey, shall we start building our own house soon? I asked. Yes, I also want to live in our own house, my husband replied. Buying a house was a big investment. I supported my husband, who was loose with money, and worked hard on saving and budgeting. Finally, we were able to see the possibility of buying our own house and started looking for a property. How's the property search going? I asked him. There's so much to decide. Nothing has been finalized yet, Axel responded. I spent my holidays on property searches and fatigue accumulated. Hey, could you help out a bit? I requested. I can't. I have work, he replied dismissively. You're really not reliable, I remarked. Oh, right. How about searching with my parents? My husband suggested. Why? I don't want to bother your parents, I replied hesitantly. It's fine. My parents are also concerned, Axel assured me. What do you mean? I asked. Don't worry about it. Everything will work out, he muttered vaguely. Although I was concerned about my husband's hesitant talk, honestly, I was not good at getting along with my in-laws and preferred to avoid spending time together. Despite this, contrary to my expectations, I was contacted by my in-laws right away. Hey, have you decided on the new house? I was thinking of asking a construction company, run by my friend, my father-in-law Ben suggested. No, we want to decide on the new house by ourselves, I said politely, trying to refuse indirectly. Still, a few days later, my father-in-law mentioned a very good piece of land he had heard about from a contact. I heard the construction company still hasn't reached out to you. Did you follow up with them? My father-in-law asked. Before I knew it, plans were underway to build a house on a piece of land I didn't know about, by a construction company I didn't even know. Actually, we want to decide everything by ourselves, I reiterated to Ben. Oh, my son said he wants us to take care of it. Make sure all the appliances are fully electric, my father-in-law insisted. The intervention by my in-laws became stronger day by day. I requested my husband to speak with his parents and ask them to refrain from getting involved. Why won't you just go along with my parents' suggestions? Their opinions are the same as mine, so there's no need to overthink it, Axel concluded. How can you say that? Proposing to create a vegetable patch where the car is supposed to be parked or installing a pizza oven in the kitchen. Are those really your ideas? I demanded. After such exchanges, one day came just before the construction was to start. A representative from the construction company called me. Could you please confirm the details of this contract one more time? He inquired. He asked. Since I had already gone over everything carefully with the architect, I replied, yes, everything looks good. The representative hesitated for a moment before continuing. I was told the house is intended for you and your husband. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. Is there a problem? I asked, feeling confused. Then the representative revealed something shocking. This design, it looks like it's meant for a large family to live in. I was stunned as it became clear that my in-laws had meddled with the design without our consent. Worse still, they had done it in a way that made it seem as though I had approved the changes, which couldn't have been further from the truth. The construction company was also perplexed. Then farm tools were delivered to where the garage was supposed to be made, and it had been switched to a plan to start a home garden. This too was the work of my in-laws. A few days later, a notice of unexpected furniture delivery was in the mailbox. It was cash on delivery. Yet again, Axel's parents had meddled. "Father, mother, please stop acting on your own," I pleaded. "Why is it bad?" Ben asked, confused. "It's wrong for you to interfere in the house we will live in," I explained. "What do you mean?" "Isn't this our house too?" my mother-in-law exclaimed in surprise. Incredibly, it seemed my in-laws had assumed we would be living together. I hurriedly contacted my husband. "Your parents have a big misunderstanding," I said urgently. "What are you talking about?" Axel asked. "They think they will live in our new house with us," I clarified. "Oh, so that's what this is about," he said nonchalantly. My heart sank at my husband's indifferent reaction. "Actually, I think it's the best idea," my husband admitted. "What are you talking about? You never mentioned this to me," I said, clearly upset. "Well, I'm telling you now. That should be enough," Axel replied dismissively. "Unbelievable. I absolutely oppose it," I stated firmly. "Wait a minute, this is about my parents. Why do you oppose it?" he added indignantly. It seemed my husband had no doubts about living with his parents. On the other hand, he pressed as if to blame me for my opposition. "Can't you, as a wife, get along with my parents?" he asked accusingly. "But the design was changed without my consent," I countered. "Well, the elderly like to meddle. It's from goodwill," Axel defended himself. "That's not possible. There's no trust between me, you, and your parents," I replied indignantly. "We can build that trust from now on," my husband said dismissively. "The problem is now I can't live with people I can't trust," I declared. "You're being too sensitive," he retorted. "Then we should cancel the new house plan. Stop the construction," I continued firmly. "Let's calm down," Axel concluded. My firm opposition led to the cancellation of the plan to live with my in-laws. Doubts about my husband remained unresolved, and it seemed he was also dissatisfied with me. Amidst this, our new house was finally completed. I felt positive for the first time in a while about deepening our family bonds while cooperating with my husband in this house. On moving day, when we had settled the luggage, my husband broached an important topic. "Now that we have our own house, I've started to feel the responsibility of being the head of the family," he said seriously. "I see," I responded cautiously. "I want you to listen. I want you, as my wife, to have that sense of responsibility too," he stated. "Don't you think that's asking a bit much?" I asked. "Hey, I'm being serious here," he replied firmly. I felt a bit of discomfort at my husband's confident posture with his arms crossed. However, thinking it was good that he started to feel a sense of responsibility, I replied, "Yes, understood." But I would soon regret that decision. It was a weekend, and my husband called me on his way home. "Tomorrow I've invited some colleagues from work over. I need you to prepare for the party," he informed me. "What? Tomorrow? Why so sudden?" I asked, surprised. "Why? Because it's tomorrow. You'll have time to prepare," he said as if it were obvious. "But I have a hair salon appointment tomorrow," I reminded him. "What are you talking about? Think about what's more important," my husband insisted. My parents will come over to help, so be thankful," he added. "What?" I exclaimed in disbelief. It was the first weekend after moving into our new house. I was looking forward to changing the layout of the kitchen and living room, but my excitement vanished in an instant. Furthermore, those in-laws of mine were coming to help. I couldn't help but feel anxious on the day of the home party. My in-laws arrived early in the morning as I was busy with the food preparation. When I asked for their help, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, such plain dishes. At least order some finger food. I'll handle the ordering." "Actually, the food is already prepared, and we have finger food ready. We can't afford any more orders," I retorted. My mother-in-law frowned. "What are you saying? Are you trying to shame your husband? Being stingy could affect your husband's promotion. What an understanding wife you are," she said sarcastically. I sighed, added, "Could you help with the party preparations instead?" "Sorry, I have a hair salon appointment. See you later," my mother-in-law replied dismissively. "Make sure to set up the food properly when it arrives." Leaving those words behind, my in-laws went out after only making their demands known. My husband was still asleep in his room. Somehow, I managed to finish the party preparations in time. When I tried to get myself ready before the guests arrived, my husband walked in and commented, "Look, this place is dirty. Hey, what's this dust in the entrance? Clean it properly. We're running low on beer. Go buy more." Ordered around by my husband and in-laws, who had just gotten ready, I ended up welcoming the guests without even having time to put on makeup. "Welcome everyone. Please this way," I said, trying to hide my frustration. My husband urged me, "Now serve the guests some drinks. Hurry up, will you?" The party that day was the worst for me. My stylish mother-in-law treated me like a servant without introducing me. When I greeted a few guests myself, they were puzzled by my appearance in a greasy apron, without makeup. They probably thought I was a servant of the house, which was humiliating. Afterward, my husband started to host parties every weekend, and my in-laws never failed to visit. Colleagues from work, their families, and even neighbors were invited without prior consultation. My in-laws continued to play the glamorous hosts at the parties, without offering any help, ordering me around. My husband adopted the same attitude as his parents. Initially, I complained to my husband, "Please, let's not have parties every weekend." "Why not? Everyone's having fun," he replied dismissively. "I work too, and preparing for parties all weekend really wears me out," I explained. "My parents are helping, aren't they?" he countered. "Helping? You call that helping?" I exclaimed in bewilderment. "It's because you can't handle the guests that my parents are stepping in," he added. "All your parents do is eat and talk without preparing or cleaning up," I shot back. My husband glared. "What do you mean? There's no need to talk about my parents like that." "But it's true," I insisted. "First of all, it's because you refuse to live with them that my parents have to come from far away," he remarked. I sighed internally at this exchange. My husband always brought up the fact that I had refused to live with his parents whenever I objected to something. He continued to argue that since I had accepted his requests, I should also listen to his desires. Amidst the days spent without rest, I suddenly realized that I hadn't yet invited my own parents to our new house. So I proposed, "I want to skip the party this weekend and invite my parents over." "What are you talking about? No, I object," Axel snapped. Object," I exclaimed. "Do you even have the awareness of being a wife? You married into my family, and above all, don't belittle my parents," he added sharply. "I'm not belittling anyone," I said, trying to stay calm. "Well, I don't mind you inviting them, but my parents come first," my husband concluded. "My in-laws come over every weekend, and with all the parties, I can never invite my own family," I thought bitterly. How did it come to this? How much more does my husband expect me to sacrifice? Reaching this thought, I decided that I needed to consult someone about this situation. So I called my mother and told her everything that had happened. I apologized tearfully for not being able to invite her to our new house. My mother was surprised but listened to me calmly. "For now, come home this weekend," she suggested. "But I have to prepare for the party," I said hesitantly. "You still haven't realized it, have you?" she asked. "Realized what?" I replied. "You're losing sight of yourself because of exhaustion," she continued gently. Awakened by my mother's words, I felt enlightened. Then my mother added, "I've come up with a plan, but I won't proceed if you're against it." Hearing the plan, I was taken aback. If executed, it would have a significant impact on my husband. I was left unsure whether to proceed. "Talk to him one more time, then decide," my mother advised. My mother left the final decision up to me. I decided to talk to my husband again. "Why are we back to this topic? Just invite your parents when mine aren't here," he said with annoyance. I interrupted him. "Listen, this is your last chance to stop planning house parties without me, and make sure you get my approval for your parents' weekly visits. This time, invite my parents too." "Last chance?" "You're joking," Axel snapped. "I won't allow you or your parents to do as you please anymore. Listen, since you refuse to live with my parents, you should prioritize them," he added coldly. As usual, my husband started blaming me for lacking family awareness. Furthermore, he stated, "A wife like you won't allow her family through our door. Never invite your parents, and if you're dissatisfied, leave." Realizing that arguing with him was futile, I had hoped patience would lead to his concession, but it was the opposite. Biting my lip, I conveyed my last hope. "You'll regret this," I replied. However, he scoffed. "I won't regret it. Don't show your face to me again." With that, I left the house and spent some time at my parents' house. As time passed, I regained my composure. Following my husband had made me realize how brainwashed I had been. For my husband, it turned out that his self-esteem and vanity were more valuable than the concept of family. In his desire to appear admirable, he exploited our new house and his wife's role for selfish purposes. Afterward, I decided to listen to my mother's proposal. Several weeks had passed since I returned to my parents' home. My health had recovered since my workplace was close to my parents' home. My enthusiasm for work returned, and I was living energetically. Yet messages from my husband continued unabated, starting with, "I'll forgive you if," always from a position of superiority. He was always concerned about the preparations for the home parties. Lately, the gatherings we planned at our house were canceled. "It's your fault. My position at work is getting worse because of this. How will you take responsibility? Think a little. I want you to fulfill your role as a wife at the important home parties," he ranted. My husband was furious that I hadn't returned home, especially since he had a special home party planned for the end of the month. This party was to welcome important people from his workplace at our house, a highly prestigious event for him, supposedly ensuring his promotion if successful. On that special day, I dressed up and headed to our home with my in-laws. My husband and in-laws were busy preparing to welcome the guests, managing the delivered food and drinks. My husband's bosses and colleagues were also present, and I exchanged greetings with them. One of the colleagues commented, "Oh, you look very charming in that dress." I replied with a smile, "Thank you." Seeing me, my husband and my in-laws immediately approached, their excitement evident. "Hey, what are you doing? Hurry up and help!" my husband snapped. "What's with that outfit? What kind of wife are you, wandering around like that?" As my in-laws reached for the hem of my dress, my mother stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Please don't touch the dress I designed with your greasy hands," she said, swatting their hands away. My mother-in-law gasped, "What is this? Who are you?" My husband quickly interjected, "Hey, that's my wife. You don't get to speak." But my mother cut him off. "It's unpleasant to be referred to in that manner towards my daughter." During this tense exchange, my husband's complexion rapidly changed. He stammered, "You are... what, daughter?" "Yes," my mother replied firmly. "You are the host of tonight's party, aren't you? Please show us around." My husband looked confused. "Oh, it was you who said we shouldn't cross the threshold of this house, right?" my mother asked him. "Huh? What are you talking about?" my husband asked, visibly panicked. "You said that," my mother added coolly. Well, that," he muttered, his face turning from blue to red like a traffic light. The guest of honor at today's gathering was my mother. My parents were executives in a major fashion company, and my husband's company planned to collaborate with my mother's design department for this year's business plan. Therefore, my husband suggested entertaining them with his proud home party. My mother, who operates under her maiden name, seemed unrecognized by my husband, although they had actually met before the marriage. Well, considering my husband's nature, he probably forgot. My father-in-law tried to take control of the situation. "Really? What kind of upbringing does your daughter have? Get to the kitchen right away, and take your parents with you. It's only fitting," he ordered. "Stop it," my husband snapped. "This person is a special guest." "What?" my father-in-law stuttered, taken aback. My husband and in-laws were flustered and unsettled. My mother gave my husband a light glance and commanded, "Bring some drinks, please." Rushing to the kitchen, my husband returned with glasses. My mother inspected them and asked, "Could you also get one for my daughter?" Glancing at me, aware of his bosses and colleagues around, he brought a glass for me with his head down. I gracefully accepted it, giving my in-laws a firm look. "Could you also take care of the food?" my mother directed at my in-laws. What?" my father-in-law stammered, but quickly regained his composure. "Yes, understood." My mother then turned to my husband. "I'd like to sit down. Could you lend me a chair?" she asked him. Yes, of course, Axel replied hastily. She glanced around. Doesn't this seem like too few dishes? She inquired. Uh-oh, does it? My husband replied, his voice trembling. How about French? Shall we order some? Of course the bill is on you, she suggested with a pointed smile. The budget is a bit, my father-in-law began, but my mother cut him off. Oh dear, scrimping might affect your son's future, you know, she said, tilting her glass and smiling warmly at him. In fact, among those invited to today's party were individuals who had been acquainted with my mother from past visits to our house. It seems they had relayed to her the cold treatment I received from my husband and in-laws at a previous home party. One guest had confided, dressed in a shabby apron, looking nothing like the lady of the house, I only realized she was your daughter when we exchanged greetings. She seemed very tired. My weakness had caused concern for my mother. Though I've regained my spirit now, that difficult period had weighed heavily on my heart. During the party, my mother kept my husband busy fetching drinks, continuously pointing out the work ethic of my in-laws, while my father deepened his acquaintance with people from my husband's workplace. After the party ended, I approached my husband. Good work, I said, handing him a document. Please sign this. He glanced at the paper and froze. A divorce petition? Yes, I replied calmly. Feeling humiliated by the day's events, my husband signed in a rage. Although my in-laws tried to stop him, he was resolute. There, he spat. It's over. Don't ever show up in front of me again. Taking the divorce petition, I left my husband's house. Exiting the gate and looking back, I knew I would never return. Thus, I bid farewell to the dream home I once longed for. The house had changed my husband's character completely, and I had nearly lost myself in the process. My attachment to this house had already vanished. Leaving the home party behind felt liberating. Afterward, I focused on my work, trying to forget the unpleasant memories of the past. With the divorce freeing me from the mortgage payments of my husband's house and the expenses related to the parties, I found financial relief. I started a new life in a rented apartment, away from my parents' home. My ex-husband was transferred to another region by his company, seemingly seen as a liability in the business dealings involving my mother. Moving to a new place, my ex-husband could no longer live in the previous house. Burdened with the house's mortgage on his own, he sought support from his parents, who apparently refused. As a result, there's been tension between my ex-husband and his parents. What became of the house after I left is unknown to me. I've overcome past difficulties, decorating my new place to my liking, improving my cooking skills on weekends, and leading a fulfilling life. Occasionally, I invite my parents over and host small home parties with homemade dishes. In this way, I've been able to spend warm and wonderful times with my family. Moving forward, I plan to cherish my parents and live with gratitude for each happy day.